If you've ever been on Steam250.com, you might know that it hosts a list of the worst rated Steam games of all time. And if you've ever looked at that list, you may have seen a game called Uriel's Chasm, made by a company called Railslave. The preview images on the game's store page offer little in the way of context. The game is advertised only as a religious deprogramming tool, and the top community guide provided is on how to uninstall the game. Now, let me just cut to the chase. Uriel's Chasm and the other 6 games in Railslave's Fever Dreams collection are insane. Of course, I purchased all 7 titles. The first I played was one by the name of Ore. The blinding light dissipates. You are manifest. The people's cries have activated ancient ore deposits and woken you from your slumber. They used to sing songs about you, the angels, the stars, the watchers. Then one day you all disappeared. But now you're back and must help them to find their frequencies, their souls, your heaven. In this game, you spawn in as a floating cassette in a field of pixelated cows. An unknown entity speaks to you, telling you to take a tape and return it to the right person. It tells you to conserve your ore, a Hebrew word which translates to light in English, so as to hold off a storm and protect the livestock around you. These cows will satisfy the lightning as an offering, it says, but only temporarily. And just like that, you're left to your own devices. You may navigate to any of the 5 levels around the map, all of which contain a character missing a music cassette. The levels are platforming challenges. Enemies may spawn at certain points, nondescript men in business suits, and then if they attack you, you enter what is called bullet hell, a combat system that took me a ridiculously long time to figure out. Furthermore, you get 3 lives in total per run. Die, and it's a hard cut back to the start without warning. It might seem obvious, only natural even, for a game like this or Uriel's Chasm to have overwhelmingly negative reviews. These games aren't just acquired tastes, they're indescribable. They're, for lack of a better phrase, fucking bizarre. And I think they rule. There's a level in Ore in which you encounter a man obsessed with fungi. Standing in the implication of a forest, he rambles on and on about his thoughts on decay and those half plants, half animals. He exclaims that there's no truer constant. And then he says something harrowing. I cannot tear myself away from them for fear that I confront the starless vacuum inside of me. Elsewhere, in a different level, a person stands in a cityscape next to a barrel lit on fire for warmth. They initially shoo you away, annoyed at you for blocking the fire, but they keep talking, and their animosity shifts elsewhere. Those damn suits look down on us like feeling this crush of emptiness is a weakness, they say, but a lot of us just don't want to end up like them. Each character is missing a vital aspect of themselves and might spend eternity searching for it. They want something they can't have, like we all often do. And in itself, this is an experience I'm sure Railslave understands. Their games are a testament to how beautiful unadulterated creativity can be in games. They all function as direct representations of everything they were created to, without regard for watering down their weirdness. And while this is a freeing method of creating art, it's also undeniably alienating. It results in the amalgam of someone's passions being almost unanimously hated by the community. Railslave said themselves that they make the games they want to play, that their games are their art. They love what they've created, and certain people like me do as well. One can only hope that's enough. I'd like to think it is. Where is God? There are too many animals on this ark. I can't do it all. No, don't take me. Who will save them? This hopelessness is mirrored in another game as well. Cohabitation by Algebra Falcon is a surrealist RPG maker game about, well, the opposite of its title. You, the player, are a creature known as an Alkean. You start the game in a dream, talking to an AI-generated something named Somnus. You get to input your name. You get to choose your appearance from options that actually look human. You even get to fantasize about your ideal romantic partner. Then, of course, you wake up. In reality, things are, as always, much bleaker. You can't remember much of anything at all about your life, but as soon as you leave your room and find a peer to ask for help, he begins barking orders at you. Who cares if you're suffering from amnesia? You will do what you're told. And your job is to reclaim a radio tower overtaken by a hull. I mentioned previously that this game's content serves as the antithesis to its title, Cohabitation, and this is why. The planet is inhabited by 2 sentient races. Alkeans, the heroes, the martyrs, the good guys, and Hull, the monsters. Alkeans, the prey, and Hull, the predators. The 2 are constantly at war and have been since God knows how long, and it's your duty to navigate the radio tower, your job to send out a signal in search of any other planet hospitable for your race. But if you fail, don't worry, you're disposable. Another soldier identical to you will try in your place, and if he dies, then yet another. In fact, this game convinces you that you will fail. Every other character is fatalistic, and you have the option to be as well. And it's hard not to be when everything is actively falling apart. It's essentially Armageddon, and you're being hunted by these things. These things. If you get too close to Hull, you die. Immediately. End of story. In this hallway, you have to move only when the emergency light glows so as to not alert the hull peering in, as our species is unable to function in the light. And this encounter is my favorite in the game, because it's a subversion of expectations. In most horror games, you have to outrun the monster. In the ones that don't follow this mechanic, you have to sneak through the dark to avoid detection. But here, you have to pass in plain sight. It makes you think there's no way this is what I'm meant to be doing. The spectacular thing about cohabitation is that, yes, it is. There's a companion piece to this game by the same developers called Time is Solid here. The feel of this one is jarringly different from the previous. It's unnervingly calm. Your world is not an alien world anymore, but an art gallery serving as your purgatory. As you wander the halls, you meet Sharon, Somnus's twin brother, and he immediately starts up into a vague conversation with himself more than anyone. He laughs, proud to leave you full of questions and confusion. He laughs, telling you that you'll have to work for answers if you want them. He laughs and orders you to do his chores. His chores are, in this case, really only one responsibility: to clean paintings. And there are only 3 in the gallery, which makes the task seem easy, suspiciously so. Because it is. Or more accurately, it's not, because to clean a painting is to help the soul inhabiting it move on. Within the first artwork is a spirit named Ava. She informs you of a maze on the other side of the wall, which is especially cruel for someone like me, she laments. Her memory fails her, and it only seems to get worse. She has to know what's in the center, though. She begs you to find out for her. You agree. Throughout the maze are letters, each more cryptic than the last, signed by E, all directed to an unknown lover. But when you reach the center of the maze, you're given context. In the center is another spirit, Elias, who was Ava's husband in life. It is revealed that he was the one writing the notes. He did so to torture Ava. As her mental stability and memory degraded with time, he would put up letters and watch, amused, as she was stuck in an endless cycle of reading them, their existence always a new mystery to her. He boasts that he's the creator of the maze too, and that nobody can stop him from expanding it infinitely. Frankly, you don't really try to. The moment in this game that hits the hardest to me is during the second painting's cleaning. In this level, you're presented with a door, an intercom, and a keypad. After trying the door and finding that it's locked, a pre-recorded message begins to play. Its owner says that nobody, except for her, is going to get through his security measures and find him. The security measures in question are childish riddles, though. After answering 2, you come to the last security room and are given a simple puzzle instead. Upon completion, the third and final door unlocks. It leads to a vast, empty room. In it is a boy and a doll. You tell him your job, to help him move on, or simply clean a painting, and he gets defensive. He's not going anywhere. Not until his mother comes and finds him. They used to play all sorts of games together, complete jigsaw puzzles, tell riddles, but his favorite thing they would do, he says, was play Marco Polo in the river near their house. One day, the boy recalls being so far from his mother in the river that he almost didn't recognize her voice. He opened his eyes and saw that it actually wasn't her, but his father. He pushed his son's head underwater and held it there until he drowned. The boy said he's too scared to leave for fear of seeing his dad again, but you urge him to. Tell him you promise he'll go somewhere better, will see his mom again, and eventually he gives in. And this is the saddest part of the entire game to me, because we don't know any of this for sure. We can hope for the best, but there's no way of knowing what lies ahead. The boy, he trusts you. He trusts you miraculously, and it feels a little like you betrayed him. The doll he created in the image of his mother is left behind, muttering incoherently and stuck, probably forever. And again, you leave. You can inspect the painting once more, but your only thought is that your work here is done. These games, while wildly different in aesthetics and themes, are both about isolation. Whether isolation means spending forever trapped in purgatory or spending a night trapped in a radio tower, the loneliness is insurmountable all the same. Any interaction with others in these games is melancholy or, in the case of cohabitation, hopeless. And really, that game is the before and time is solid here is the after. It's death in the afterlife. I find it most intriguing, though, what I've only mentioned once in passing so far: the use of artificial intelligence to create assets for both works. The indecipherable chimera of brushstrokes that make up any given character serves 3 purposes. And time is solid here, it conveys lifelessness in the literal sense. Everyone there is dead. In cohabitation, it's utilized as a symbol for technology and the inorganic. In both games, it serves as a reminder for what you already know. Everything around you is foreign and you are alone. Because even though the player's character sprite may be AI generated as well, it's still a vessel for you, a living being. There's nothing quite as unnerving as realizing that you don't recognize a single thing around you. However, sometimes this fear can be shaped into something so absurd it can almost be funny. Surrealism is, at its core, a perversion, a what-if, a test of how far one can push things. And, as it turns out, you can even warp the most grotesque and confusing things into a comedic work of art. Octopus City Blues is likely the most popular game on this list, and it's about a lot of things. Mainly, it's about Kafka, a tentacle trimmer living on a giant octopus. This game is less story-based than the previous 3, focusing more on world-building and exploration. And my god, is there a lot to explore, given that only the demo is available to play as of recording. Playing as Kafka, you're initially interviewing for a job with the company Curtain Crust. The boss, aptly named Cigar Boss, is about as pleasant as you might expect, but he tells you he'll consider your application and that's that. You leave his office and get your first real look at what the world around you is like. Humanoid potential co-workers immediately antagonize you, trash is piled up high in the corner despite the presence of a janitor, everything seeming a little too cramped to be up to any safety codes. You make your way to the tenement, and then your apartment. A rather shouty landlady berates you for having a package sent to the incorrect address. Inside your home, things aren't much better. Your mother sits silently, and you dare to test her for once, but you feebly conclude that her gaze is too powerful. An alleged friend of yours, con man, comes in, incessantly bothering you. He then offers you a sandwich that looks like this, and, upon eating it, you unsurprisingly get food poisoning. Certainly a series of unfortunate events. But this all turns out to be a test by Cigar Boss, the actual purpose of which is anyone's guess, really. In fact, he just keeps telling you to do things that seem frankly really pointless. He hasn't hired you, is honestly just mocking you at this point, and you're still his little errand boy. He demands you get him octoplot, an illicit substance that is definitely fatal in large doses, but come on, you want to be part of the company, don't you? You explore the city, asking about the drug and getting a good sense for how dangerous it is, but nonetheless hell-bent on completing your task. This happens when you try to give it to Cigar Bus, but he reassures you that you're only anxious. And really, you have no reason to be anxious around him. The game continues, you shuffling from one place in the city to the next, speaking with people of dubiously trustworthy nature about hot mod conspiracies and beetles. Every inch of the map is full of life like weeds growing through cracks in the pavement. The visuals are psychedelic, Octopus City like a grimy Neo-Tokyo. This is probably the game on the list with the least focus on morality, but it still does a great job of satirizing capitalism to rid it of any validity. The people are all self-serving and cynical, the businessmen all sleazy. Even you, or Kafkafkarion really, are a fickle bootlicker at the end of the day. But to take Octopus City too seriously would be to misunderstand it completely. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be weird. It's for entertainment purposes in the end, and it does its job well. The game is meant to be ridiculous because it isn't trying to mimic our world much at all. Sure, the themes have weight and relevance to them, but the city folk in this world ride a giant centipede for public transportation. Octopus City Blues doesn't want you to waste time trying to figure it out, because that's what real absurdism is about. As a philosophy, absurdism is understanding that things are without purpose a lot of the time, but also that this means freedom to make of anything what you will or what you won't. None of these games, though, are anything like this last one, which stands as my favorite. Abyssal Somewhere is given only a vague description, yet somehow I couldn't think of any text more fitting to describe it. Facing other shades, strolling through an abyssal place, the memories, pains, and regrets of the old sunken realm. You wake up in a strange tiled room, and I just want to say that the choice of designing the protagonist with the classic suit of armor is just so fucking sick. But anyways, you see these two dauntingly large wheels in the corner that make a very unsettling buzzing sound, and it's made immediately clear that this world is not built to be hospitable. It can be navigated, but coincidentally. This place was not made for you. Venturing outside, you see a chasm, and it really begins to sink in that you're in a megastructure beyond comprehension. There are inscriptions on a nearby iron door, almost none of them are legible. There are statues that resemble things close to humans. All of them are falling apart. You may keep venturing further into this world, the map opens up eventually into an impossibly large space that seems infinite. And then you are taught a second thing. There are others in this world, and you are given instructions on how to defend yourself. Almost wordlessly, you're taught to remain on your guard. Everything that surrounds you is hostile, it seems, and the act of fighting the others is unnerving, to say the least. The way they contort when hit and shriek is just eerie. The architecture, if that's what you would call it, in this game is so fascinating to me. It's medieval and yet simultaneously industrial, which I simply cannot express my adoration enough for. There's a paved road and fire escape stairs in the same world as structures straight out of Shadow of the Colossus, and yet it all fits perfectly together, which I'd likely credit the game's unique graphics for. You keep wandering and end up back in the chasm from before, except this time there's a small army of entities all wielding harpoons, all staring at an enemy that you can't see. Until you do. Needless to say, you die to it, but instead of restarting, this triggers a new portion of the game. Which, I just want to say, is one of my favorite aspects of Abyssal Somewhere. The story is amorphous in structure and yet flows so naturally that it almost seems linear, almost seems reasonable. No matter how foreign everything is, you can almost convince yourself that everything is as it should be, even if you know deep down that it isn't. After dying, you wake up in the same tiled room as before, but this time it's raining, pouring, flooding. It conveys a sense of urgency, and the chasm outside is no different. There are more entities that seem desperate to survive an unknown threat, bleach-white arms extending at random from the water and grabbing for you. The environment itself is trying to stop you from whatever it is you're doing. And the thing is, you don't even really know what you're doing. You only know that you need to keep moving. The air turns static, everything slows down, and you keep moving. This is your prize. 16 whisperers whisper 16 words. They tell of holding all the blame of their covered bodies, of being concealed into harsh concrete, even though they speak and weep and feel sorry and lonely. But underwater it all seems gibberish. Is it meant for someone else? And then for a third time you awake in the tiled room. For a third time you traverse the chasm, learning about the nature of the world and the tragedies that befell the statues housed there. But as you set off down the path you keep returning to, something new happens. An entryway is open to a bridge from the very beginning of the game, but this time you're given the option of jumping into the abyss below. What was originally a river of oil is now a drop into a wholly different realm. The megastructure is light years away, replaced by an endless desert occupied only by archaic monuments. You're told the following. It faced doom 6,000 years ago. Ironclad being, it has to be crossed to get to the underworld, and to heaven next. There one may ask life itself, why you are the only one alive. When you reach these gates guarded by what looks like an angel, beings spawn to protect it and lurch at you like robotic cryptids. When you defeat them, there's a moment of clarity in which a being of TV noise stares at you. Just stares. This continues for some time before the guardian angel begins to run away. You chase it, now no longer bound by the constraints of physics, battling more of its guards, but you catch up with the angel eventually. You are always going to. You are a being made of infinity, and you are 1,000 choirs being sung at once. You know everything there is to know. You are the only human left, and you will not die. If being is divine, then you will be the god of the wastes. It would, I think, do this game a grave disservice to try and figure out what everything in it means. The point of Abyssal Somewhere is its esoteric nature. It's about marveling at everything around you, wondering what went wrong in the past, honoring the dead soldiers who were doomed from the start. It isn't about a concrete plot. It doesn't have a concrete theme. It exists just for the spectacle of itself. And this could have so quickly ruined the game, but it didn't, because the spectacle of this game is unmatched. It's art for art's sake. And Abyssal Somewhere is impossibly good at setting tone. The text within it being almost like free verse poetry gives the whole experience of playing a dreamlike quality. Everything about the game draws you in immediately. It almost bestows upon the player a sense of duty, a cosmic purpose. If I had to choose just one word to describe this game, I choose sublime in the romantic sense. As written by Edmund Burke. Passion caused by the great and sublime in nature, when those causes operate most powerfully, is astonishment. And astonishment is that state of the soul in which all of its motions are suspended with some degree of horror.